Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Sunday, August 7th. And we do this each evening through a unique partnership with Alaska Public Media. If you would like to pass along any interesting reports or have a photo to share with me, you can reach me at peter.chan@noaa.gov. And for additional weather information on top of what I provide in this broadcast, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online webpage, and you'll come to a map of the continental U.S. If you click on that map, also Alaska, Hawaii in the lower left, if you click anywhere on that map, it'll bring up a forecast with any relevant watches, warnings, and advisories for anywhere in the country. So it makes it very easy to check up on what the weather's doing, say, at a friend or a family member's home in a different location. And today we have heat advisories in the Northeast, the nation's midsection, as well as in the Pacific Northwest. There are a number of flood watches still eastern Kentucky, parts of West Virginia, as well as southern Wisconsin, eastern Iowa, northwest Illinois, back into eastern Colorado and parts of Arizona. And we have red flag warnings for southern parts of Oregon into far northern California. Here in Alaska, though, the fire danger has just been snuffed out. That's good news. Flood watch has been issued by the Anchorage Forecast Office for the Mat-Su Valley Monday morning through Tuesday afternoon. As much as 2 to 4 inches of rain could fall in this time frame. It's going to affect mainly the creeks and smaller rivers of the system, so that could impact some of the people fishing if the river and creek levels come up. Wind advisory is in effect for east central Alaska range, including Isabel Pass, for some gusty south gap winds that could be up around in over 50 miles an hour. And then elevated surf is going to be a possibility that continues there along areas of the west coast, including the lower Yukon Delta, all the way through Monday into Monday night. And good news for the Panhandle, you're going to dry out and become warmer. There could be some areas of fog for early Monday morning, but after that, especially Tuesday into Wednesday, as a ridge of high pressure builds in, that's going to bring you some nicer weather in southern parts of the Panhandle. Could get temperatures back up into the 70s Tuesday, Wednesday, and even into Thursday. But let's take a look at a few of the FAA webcams from across the state. Wales and the west end of the Seward Peninsula is seeing some light rain, fog, breezy conditions, north winds beginning to pick up now as low pressure pushes inland to the west central side of the state. Temperature 46 there. Hooper Bay a little further south, overcast skies, breezy west winds coming in there at least 30 miles an hour and gusty. 50-degree temperature, and as I mentioned, that lower Yukon Delta could see some elevated surf through Monday night. Now, as we go up toward Black Rapids near Isabel Pass in the east central Alaska range, clouds are on the increase and winds will be picking up from the south and could gust at times over 50 miles an hour, so keep that in mind. And then back further south and west, Birchwood, they're kind of down the lower end of the Mat-Su Valley. Overcast, temperature near 60 degrees, but some heavier rains will be developing starting later tonight, but the bulk of it coming Monday into Tuesday. And some areas could see as much as 2 to 4 inches of rainfall, especially where you have some enhancement by the elevation and the winds flowing up the mountains there with the orographic lift. So here are the weather advisories. We have the wind advisory in effect for the east central Alaska range, and that'll be for tonight into early Tuesday morning. South winds could gust between 40 to as high as 60 miles an hour in some of the gaps there. And then the area in orange is the flood watch for the Mat-Su Valley. Places like Willow Creek, the Little Susitna River could see some notable rises if we do get that 2 to 4 inches of rain. And also to pass on, Anchorage Bowl could see around or just over an inch of rainfall with this system. Hillside, east side of Anchorage, could see some rainfall amounts top 2 inches. Given the current forecast. And taking a look back on fire season here for 2022, as of August 5th, we had 3,085,000 acres burned with over 560 fires year to date. And the thing is that if we compare that to the graph, going back to records to 1950, 2022, right now at least, is the 7th most acreage consumed by fire. The others being 1957, 69, 90, 2004, 2005, and 2015. And of course, 2004 being the greatest number of acreage consumed, over 6.5 million acres in 2004, followed by another very active fire season there for 2005. So we've kept that trend since 2000 up here. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top years of acreage consumed in the last 20 years. Here's the fire danger. It's come down considerably for the day tomorrow. It's anticipated to be low across most of the state. Just a speck of potentially higher fire danger there in parts of the Yukon Flats, but this is going to go down further given the fact we have a wet and cool week ahead. Satellite imagery shows kind of counterclockwise spin over eastern Russia. That's that mid-level low with a cold pool of air aloft as that works its way into the west side of the state. That's going to bring widespread precipitation here, west spreading into the interior. You factor in the colder air aloft, that's going to cause freezing levels to come down this week. So Denali Park, the mid-higher elevations, could see 6 to 8 inches of snowfall. So if you're heading out into the back country, be aware of that for changing weather conditions and expect cold and wet conditions that could cause hypothermia, so be ready. And then areas of the Brooks Range are expecting 4 inches of snow with lowering snow levels to about 2,000 or 3,000 feet. But some pretty good winds and moisture now working its way up to the west side of the Alaska Range, and that's going to cross on over and then work up through Cook Inlet into the Matsu Valley. That's why we have the flood watch in effect there. Low pressure tonight will be centered up over the northwest interior near Kotzebue Sound. Cold front pressing inland, and then during the day on Monday, that front will continue to press further inland across the interior and crossing the Alaska Range, helping to lower those snow levels. And then on Tuesday, we have another low coming up on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, and that's going to spread another round of rain up there along areas of the North Pacific Western Gulf that'll eventually slam into Yakutat, and there is the potential for some heavier rainfall around Yakutat and just to the west of there as we go into Tuesday night and Wednesday. But eventually the interior rains will become more scattered showers in nature. Temperatures for lows will generally be lower 50s in the Panhandle, upper 40s, near 50 for south central areas. And then temperatures on Monday will be kept down generally in the 50s in through south central areas. There could be a few mid-upper 60s in the southern Panhandle on Monday. And then Tuesday morning lows, upper 40s to lower 50s. Again, there could be some fog form, not just Monday morning, but again Tuesday morning in the Panhandle. And back toward the west, south central areas, we'll see periods of rain, keeping temperatures mainly in the 50s. However, Ketchikan, Metlakatla could be back up around or a tad above 70 as early as Tuesday afternoon. The interior for Monday morning lows, 40s generally, 30s along the Arctic coast and western Seward Peninsula. Still could see a few 60s, Fort Yukon down toward Eagle and Northway, otherwise 50s through the middle Yukon Valley and 40s elsewhere on the west side of the state, so definitely cooler temperatures. And then Tuesday morning, lows near 40 along the Yukon River, generally 30s, Brooks Range and Arctic coast, as well as the west end of the Seward Peninsula. And temperatures overall 40s and 50s will be common on Tuesday afternoon. Same thing for the southwest interior, lows generally getting down into the 40s to near 50 for Monday morning. Highs, though, confined to the 40s, at least back there towards, say, Hooper Bay, Imanak, and then along the Alaska Range, still some 50s extending down through the Alaska Peninsula. Tuesday morning lows, though, we could see a few upper 30s, around 40 there as we creep up the Kuskokwim and Yukon rivers. And temperatures Tuesday afternoon will be generally in the lower to maybe middle 50s. Warmest readings could be, say, Dillingham, King Salmon, maybe about 58, and mid 50s as we extend down through the Alaska Peninsula, through Chiknik, and all the way down toward Dutch Harbor. So the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, once we get around and past mid-month, is going to show that coldest pool of air beginning to lift out of the state. In fact, temperatures may creep a bit above normal across south central areas surrounding Prince William Sound and Cook Inlet. So look for temperatures to moderate in the south. Still a bit below normal, though, in the northeast, especially eastern Brooks Range and the eastern half of the North Slope. And precipitation for mid-month is expected to average near normal across most of the state. However, could average a little above normal there along the north slope and especially along the Arctic coast, Arctic Village on up toward Utqiagvik and Dead Horse. So there you have it. We do have a cooler and wetter week ahead for most of the state, but after that, temperatures should begin to moderate.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, it's now time for your aviation weather, and if you have a flight planned Monday or on Tuesday, we're watching low pressure over west central portions of the state that'll be working its way eastward across the interior and then just gradually weaken as there are spokes of energy rotating around that and a weakening cold front as it pushes up and toward the west side of the Alaska range. Also, a low will be developing across the North Pacific and sliding just on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, and that'll spread more precipitation up there, especially up through the western portion of the Gulf before midweek. Otherwise, we'll have areas of IFR extending from parts of the southeast panhandle, the inner channels and intercoastal mountains, back across areas along south of the Alaska Range, pockets just south of the Brooks Range, and then out along the southwest coast, Bristol Bay. And on Monday afternoon could even be an isolated thunderstorm develop on the south side of the Brooks Range up there toward the Yukon Flats and areas further south. Still some IFR conditions north side of Prince William Sound to down through McCarthy to just northwest of Yakutat, and then also IFR conditions there through the lower Bering and central Aleutians. Tuesday morning, widespread IFR conditions along the Brooks Range, North Slope and Arctic Coast. Still areas of IFR, northern panhandle along south of the Alaska Range, and then especially back out from the tip of the Alaska Peninsula across the Aleutian chain. Tuesday afternoon, some improvement across at least the mainland, at least conditions lifting to MVFR in many areas. Still some pockets of IFR are possible there along the mountains of far southeast Alaska, at least of the mainland there, and then along and south of the Alaska Peninsula. We look for IFR conditions as that precipitation works its way northeastward up through the western Gulf. Anaktuvik Pass will be IFR Monday morning, giving way to MVFR conditions. Could be an isolated storm, especially on the south side of the entrance there, developing in the afternoon or early evening. Same thing, Adigan Pass, IFR in the morning, becoming MVFR with perhaps an isolated storm developing in vicinity of the pass Monday afternoon and evening. Lake Clark and Merrill will generally see IFR conditions becoming MVFR, and this will be the case rounding through most of the western and central Alaska Range, IFR becoming MVFR at Rainy Pass as well as Windy Pass. Little further east, Isabel should generally be MVFR on Monday, and Mentasta Pass, the north entrance, generally VFR, south entrance MVFR. Tanita Pass will see IFR conditions in the morning, giving way to MVFR conditions. And Portage Pass, kind of a split. MVFR western half, IFR eastern half, especially out over Prince William Sound. And Chilkoot and White will see IFR conditions give way to MVFR conditions as Monday rolls on. Freezing levels are lowest down to 2,000 feet aloft and at the surface there over eastern Russia. On the backside of this low that'll be situated over the west side of the state, freezing levels do come down to 4,000 feet at least Monday morning there along the west, northwest coast, and the bulk of the interior below 6,000 feet. Still, though, we have freezing levels as high as 12,000 feet south end of the Panhandle and across the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. Greatest threat for some icing will be around areas of the Alaska Range down toward the Talkeetna Mountains and at least northern end of Prince William Sound, 10,000 feet to a flight level of 18,000 feet. And in the colder air, lower Chukchi Sea, Bering Strait, somewhere around 5,000 to 10,000 feet, we could find some isolated moderate turbulence. Jet stream level winds are strongest, southwest to west wind 120 knot max over southwest mainland, and then bringing it down to 9,000 feet, 700 millibars, a broad area of west to southwest winds in the 40 to 50 knot category across the southeast two-thirds of the mainland, extending out over the Alaska Peninsula. Backside, we see 40 knot northeast winds through the Bering Strait, and at 3,000 feet, low pressure circulation is just east of Kotzebue Sound in the interior northwest, south of the Brooks Range, with northeast winds to 40 knots there through the Bering Strait. Also, we see some westerly winds around and southwest winds up through Cook Inlet to 35 knots, as well as near the entrance of Cook Inlet. And this will translate to areas of turbulence, surface to 3,000 feet. There could be moderate turbulence there through the Bering Strait, west side of the Seward Peninsula to St. Lawrence. Also the far western Aleutians, surface to 3,000 feet. And then across much of the interior, central interior, Yukon Valley down through the southwest interior, including the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and Cook Inlet, and the Kenai Peninsula could see turbulence surface to 4,000 feet.
Just as the sun is part of weather on Earth, it also affects weather in space. The sun creates solar wind by steadily releasing a flow of plasma particles in all directions around it. Sometimes the sun gives off a flash of light and X-rays. This is known as a solar flare. When massive bursts of particles explode into space, we call it a coronal mass ejection, or CME. When a CME is directed toward Earth, it hits the magnetosphere, the magnetic field around our planet that protects us. If the storm is large, we may even get to enjoy a light display in the sky called the auroras. In space, satellites may be damaged, and astronauts should take cover. On Earth, people do not feel any physical effects. We may lose electricity in some areas, polar flights may be rerouted, and satellite services may be disrupted. While these situations aren't ideal, they are rare and fixable. This is why we will continue to study the sun and its interactions with Earth and the solar system.
Longing for more space, open skies, and exotic travel? Then look up, about 30 to 600 miles straight up, at the ionosphere, Earth's interface to space. Nestled far above the clouds but below outer space, this little understood destination invites you to explore its many features. Experience both the weather from Earth and the weather from space. Marvel at the ballet of radio waves and navigation signals, like GPS, leaping through this particle paradise. Sit back, relax, and take in the aurora, some satellites, and the International Space Station as they sail by. And you'll want your camera handy for one of the region's signature features, bright and colorful air glow. This daily show is made possible by the ionosphere's own swirling charged particles, because that's what the ionosphere is. It's all charged particles. During the day, enjoy the sea of particles, freshly energized by the sun. As the sun sets, this particle party relaxes and the air glow thins. Our quieter nightlife lets you gaze into clearer skies. The ionosphere is in constant motion, an amazing effect of space weather. Don't miss when solar storms rain down. The storm separates the particles even more, making this colorful region delightfully more dense in some places and stunningly sparse in others. And don't forget about storms from Earth below. Your weather from back home also stirs up this one-of-a-kind destination. Experience the unique beauty of every season, as changes in Earth's atmosphere, daily and annually, can create pressure waves, changing the ionosphere's shape and density. Venture to the equator, where our particles are packed in lush and thick. Cruise along a magnetic field line and see how the ionosphere's charged material also interacts with Earth's own magnetic field. Don't miss the superhighway of particles zipping out to space and back down to the planet. This unpredictable parade of charged particles can help you unplug and unwind. This is because the crowd of particles can garble the radio and satellite communications from home. The ionosphere welcomes you to discover more about this little-known region. After all, once you've explored this interface to space, who knows how much farther you'll be able to go.
When a star, bigger and more massive than the Sun, runs out of fuel at the end of its life, its core collapses while the outer layers are blown off in a supernova explosion. What's left behind depends on the star's original mass. A star roughly 10 to 20 times our Sun leaves behind a neutron star. A more massive star becomes a black hole. Unlike black holes, neutron stars are directly observable, usually as pulsars, the lighthouses of the cosmos. Discovered 50 years ago, they are the densest observable objects in the universe. Neutron stars compress up to twice the Sun's mass into a city-sized sphere. Matter is packed so tightly that a teaspoon of neutron star interior would weigh more than 1 billion tons on Earth. Still, the nature of the ultra-dense matter in the cores of neutron stars is unknown. Because neutron stars pack so much mass into such a tiny volume, they produce gravity strong enough to bend the light they emit, distorting their appearance in a way that enables the mass and size of the star to be measured. Scientists cannot reproduce the extreme conditions in and around neutron stars on Earth. They must look into the galaxy to answer decades-old questions about extreme matter and gravity. NASA's Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer mission, or NISA, will make X-ray observations of neutron stars from its perch on the International Space Station. It will give astronomers more insight into these mysterious objects, helping determine what is under their surface. A multi-purpose mission, NISA includes a technology demonstration called Sextant. It will analyze NISA's observations to validate the use of rapidly rotating neutron stars as navigation beacons for travel in deep space throughout the solar system and beyond.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back to the final marine weather segment of the show. We start out with the sea ice edge, and there has been a little bit of melting and movement there along the Arctic coast, though still in place. More notably along the Russian coast, the ice there has seemed to at least melt and decreased in coverage than what it had been this past week. And as we'd expect here through the latter portion of the summer, continued slow melting of the ice in the Arctic will continue. Well, looking at the marine forecast, the inner channels of the Panhandle, Lynn Canal will have south winds 20 knots, gusting to 35 knots with waves up to 4 feet. Kind of a split. Winds turn northwesterly down toward Ketchikan, Metlakatla with waves a few feet there. And then generally, winds on the outer coast will be west-northwest 10 to 15 knots, waves 5 to 6 feet, especially south of Gustavus. Southwest winds around Yakutat at 10 knots with waves of 5 feet. For Tuesday, we have a ridge of high pressure building into the area, so that's going to bring a little drier conditions and some periods of sunshine, warmer temperatures in the south. Winds will be out of the north-northwest 10 to 20 knots through the lower inner channels with waves of 2 to 4 feet, and southwesterly 15 knots, 3-foot waves in Lynn Canal, and then the outer Gulf Coast west to northwest winds 15 to 20 knots, especially off of Sitka down through Craig, with waves there of 5 to 7 feet. On Monday for Cook Inlet, mid-inlet north of Homer through Kenai, south winds to 30 knots, waves 10 to as high as 13 feet. Southeast winds in Prince William Sound to 20 knots, waves there a few feet. And then off the Kenai, southwest winds 20 knots, waves 6 to 7 feet. Winds come down on Tuesday. We're looking for Prince William Sound, south winds 10 knots, waves 2 feet. Waves off the Kenai generally out of the west at 15 knots and waves 5-6 feet. And in Cook Inlet, especially north of Homer, southwest winds 15 to 20 knots and waves 5 to 6 feet. For Kodiak Island and the Alaska Peninsula, winds will be southwesterly at 25 to 30 knots, especially there through Shelikof Strait, where waves will be as high as 8 to 9 feet. Otherwise, elsewhere, 25 to 20 knot winds from the southwest, waves 5 to 6 feet on the North Pacific side and around 8 feet from Cold Bay on up toward Bristol Bay. And for Tuesday, winds turn northwesterly Shelikof Strait and into Bristol Bay at 15 knots, waves running 3-4 feet. And kind of a split of winds off of Kodiak Island. Winds will be out of the southwest 25 knots, waves 6 to 7 feet, but turning north easterly 20 to 20 knots as you get out down along the south end of the Alaska Peninsula. Winds will be variable across a good portion of the central and eastern Aleutians on Monday at 10 to 15 knots. Waves generally 3 to 4 feet. Winds become more easterly south of Adak and Atka, as well as west of Adak, and picking up to 20 knots with waves of 5 to 7 feet there in the western Aleutians. Overall, across the region, look for winds to become northeasterly 20 to 25 knots on Tuesday. Waves running 8 to as high as 10 feet through the central and eastern Aleutians on the Bering side, and 7 to 9 feet on the North Pacific side. Across the southwest coast, we are looking for winds northwest to west around 20 knots, and waves running 6-7 feet, even into Norton Sound, where winds will be westerly to 25 knots. On Tuesday, west to northwest winds 15 to 20 knots, waves 4 feet there in Norton Sound, 5 to 6 feet south of St. Lawrence Island around Nunavik Island, and east of St. Paul and St. George. And then along the lower Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait, 25 to 30 knot north winds turning more westerly with waves running around 8 feet there. And along the Arctic coast, winds will turn easterly 15 knots with 3-foot waves, Prudhoe Bay toward Kaktovik. And then on Tuesday, look for generally westerly winds lower Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait at 15 to 20 knots, waves running 4 to as high as 6 feet on the north side of St. Lawrence Island. And then along the Arctic coast, generally westerly winds 15 to 20 knots, and waves there 3 to 4 feet. And quickly looking at the surface weather map for Monday afternoon, low pressure centered there near and just east of Kotzebue Sound, with a weakening cold front pushing across the interior. Another low beginning to emerge just south of the central and eastern Aleutians by Tuesday. The interior low weakens with scattered showers continuing, snow levels coming down to around 3,000 feet in the Brooks Range, and into the mid elevations there of Denali Park, where as much as 8 inches of snow could fall, and another push of moisture riding up along the south side of the Alaska Range and spreading up into the western Gulf and north central Gulf region as we go through Tuesday and into Wednesday. So that wraps it up for this Sunday evening. Thank you for watching.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.